Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this program about your Kundalini awakening experiences. And my name is Chrism, and I'd like to speak with you a little bit about your Kundalini today. I'd like to welcome everybody in the chat room, everybody who is calling in. I'd like to welcome everybody who is listening in the archives, the future people, the future that is now. I'd like to welcome the people that are listening on their smartphones and on their laptops and their computer desktops at work. I'd like to welcome everybody here. And I would first and foremost like to welcome my co-host, Amelia Santorum. Hi, Amelia. Welcome.
Hi, Chrism. Good to be here. Hi, everybody.
I'd like
How's the sound?
to just say your sound is great. At least I think it's great coming into me. Maybe the chat room folks can let us know how the sound is reaching them, because we always know that Blog Talk Radio can have a little challenging scenarios. Thank you, David. David says it's great.
Fab. Thanks.
I know that you had some corrective health service over the past few days, and maybe you can give people an update on how things are going.
Okay. Well, I had half a thyroidectomy done. The left side of my thyroid was removed. I had a large node or a large nodule in it. I've had it for quite a few years, but it's been fine. But it grew a bit recently, and the biopsy showed that, it needed to come out. So that's what was done last Thursday. And I'm recovering. It's sore and painful on the outside, and I'm still sleeping sitting up with pillows. Oh my God. But anyway.
Oh boy.
And my voice goes every now and then. But other than that, I'm doing well. It's been an incredible journey, actually.
Did you have any gerbil experiences?
No, I did not. I did have an expectation around that, but expectations are not good. So
that's true.
There
that's
was a
true.
lesson learned. So
I'm glad that you didn't have that experience happening. That's very good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. That the operation seemed to go well. I mean, you're coming out of it. I looked at your picture earlier today, and you look well. You look like you're recovering.
I am indeed. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much as well to everybody on the healing group. I deeply appreciated everybody's good wishes and love and healing and prayers. So it was a great success, Chrism. And it went well, and the actual procedure itself went well, much better than I had.
The doctors didn't prop you up on the bed and take pictures with you in weird positions, right?
Well, who knows, I really don't care.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. You didn't wake up inside the surgery, right?
No, I did not. And will I speak a little bit about that, or will I leave it go?
Please do. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Before the surgery, I'd say a month or so, maybe even longer, I was having these dreams where I was waking up during the surgery. So I'd open my eyes, and I was in the middle of the surgery, but I couldn't move. And I could feel everything that they were doing to my neck. It was extremely painful, and I screamed, stop, stop. But of course, I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't do anything. And then I would come out of the dream after a little while, but it was absolutely horrendous. And because it happened a couple of times, it was like the signature of it was on me. It was like I'd had the experience, and of course, I was very fearful, because I was concerned that it might be a predictive or precognitive dream that I was being told this was going to happen. And so that was concerning me a lot. And each time it happened, that increased the fear. So I did try and talk with the team beforehand, but I couldn't get on to my surgeon. I couldn't get on to anybody. But the night before the surgery, I had an understanding given to me by the Kundalini around that, and actually it would be interesting to. I haven't spoken to you about this, Chrism, but it was like I came to understand for myself anyway that if this was karmic, if this was going to happen because of karma, then I realized that it was going to happen in a short period of time. Yes, it would have been torture for the hour, the 2 hours, but then it would be over. And somehow, with the communication that I got about that, I knew that I would just be able to surrender to it, to just allow it to be. And
Right.
and there was a lot of things happened that night. And then the following morning, when I went into the surgery, I was very much at peace. That didn't stop me speaking to the anaesthetist and the surgeon and asking them some questions, but I didn't have any more fear. And the interesting thing was, because when they gave me an injection into my arm, and then they said to me, and that will relax you, blah, 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 and now we're going to put a mask over your mouth. And they put the mask over my mouth, and I had thought as soon as I started to breathe, I'd go to sleep, but I didn't. And a minute passed, and I was breathing, and nothing was happening. And I was thinking to myself, well, this is it. It's going to be from the very
that's
beginning.
Terrible. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, from the very beginning. So I moved a finger or two, and I had that moment where I had to decide, was I going to tear off the mask and freak out or not? And what had happened the night before just came, and I just did nothing. And I'd say what they were doing was giving me oxygen, but I didn't know that, because the next thing they said, now we're going to give you something and you'll drift off. So I don't know, but I had that experience of having to surrender, thinking that maybe this was the beginning of the process. But what you did the night before, Chrism, with me, and how peaceful I felt, was amazing.
Well, you know what? I know what really made this thing work is you made that agreement that if you died, you'd have to give me your car, and you didn't want to give me your car. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're just going, I'm hanging on to that car because I ain't going anywhere. That's what it was. Admit it.
I was never afraid of dying. That's not. I'm not afraid of that at all. But what's the story with the fact that I felt that so real? The actual dreaming of it. I mean, it was real, Chrism.
Yeah.
I did,
Maybe the whole point of that dream was to put you into the state that you were in, to really give you a reason to have surrender to it, backed up by a very, very harsh possible reality, and that you're just going to have to surrender to it no matter what. You're going to have to surrender to it. And it's a really a great example of how we have to surrender to the Kundalini in the worst situations in life. I mean, with the death of loved ones, and with the injuries to ourselves, and sickness or war or famine, or many of the different things, not being allowed to have a blue Honda car, the terrible things in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see it as a window for grace to teach not only you, but for the people that you relate this story to. And so it's very important that we begin to understand that even though our life seems to be falling apart at the seams, and the seams are bursting, and our health is fading, and our finances are fading, and our opportunities are fading, and our social reality is fading, and everything seems to be falling apart, we must still surrender ourselves to the divine and trust that the divine is going to be able to help us where we need it most. that our life will be rebuilt and our understandings of life will be expanded. I feel you came out of this with a level of expansion in your ability to trust. What do you think?
I think so, Chrism, because there are other things going on with regard to my health, and I feel that very much, regardless of how it goes,
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think it's a success story all the way around, and I'm not surprised that it happened to you, dear Santara. You did well.
Yeah.
Even though I
still
don't
grabbed
get your
my
car.
throat when I woke up. It's over. It was still a great relief that it didn't happen, but yeah. So thank you, Chrism. So that's my story. So apparently it'll be another week or so before my
Cole and I
voice.
were going. Cole Kundalini and I, we were gonna, sell the car on the black market and get as much money as possible and split it between the two of us. But now, Cole, I'm sorry, we're out of business.
Sorry, Cole.
And I have to say, this is the first that Cole has heard of this plan.
You left him off the hook there very quickly.
I did. Okay, all right. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody who's calling in, David and the state of Minnesota. Joey, hello. Let's go ahead and begin. Do you have any announcements you'd like to make it first?
Well, Chrism, I will invite people, if they're in a position to make a donation, to go ahead and do that, because all donations are really gratefully received and are extremely helpful in the work that is being done and in the support that you give for this work to be done, this Kundalini work that Chrism does. So I'm going to give you two websites you can go to where there are donate buttons. The first one is www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com, and the other one is the Safeties website, and that's just www.kundalinisafeties.com. So thank you very, very much. If you're in a position to donate and you wish to donate, please do that. All amounts are gratefully received. And then, of course, we have the Berlin seminar coming up in September, and that's happening on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of September. And Manisha Manish is the lady that's organising that, and I can give you her address maybe towards the end of the program.
And Manisha is logged in, and she's on the chat room right now. So I want to shout out a special greeting of appreciation and gratitude to you, Manisha. Also, gratitude to Emma Travis and Katie Paulson Galerno and Joey from Minnesota, Joey Winter, and the many other people that have offered their material donations. And so thank you very much. And as Amelia said, they are gratefully received and they have put to very good use. So thank you, everyone who is doing that. And thank you, Manisha. And continue. I believe we have another, Santar, we have another seminar coming up as well.
Well, we have the seminar coming up in October in Minnesota. Is this the one you referred to?
That's the one I'm referring to.
Aha, and that's the one I've no information on.
So that's being put on by, I'll do it. That's because it's being put on by Rosemary Goliath, and she is not on right now, which is unusual because she usually is here for the show. And as we go into the month of October, this will be on the, I believe it's the 27th, 28th, and 29th of October, like a Halloween Kundalini celebration. And it is, you can reach Rosemary Goliath at rosemaryg@usinternet.com. I believe that's what it is.
Yes, that's right.
And we, you can get some more information on that for those of you that are in the great state of Minnesota and the surrounding areas, and anybody actually wants to fly in to make it there Minnesota is a very, very, very beautiful state, and it's always an excellent seminar that we can have there. This will be in the city of Mankato, and Katie is here, and if you would like to go ahead and make any corrections that needs to be made about that, Katie Paulson Galerno, please do that on the chat room there. We'll go ahead and relate that. So many, many thanks to Rosemary Goliath and Joey and Katie and Manisha and everybody who is working so hard to bring this information into the general population. So thank you very much with that. And any other announcements, Santara?
No, Chrism, that's it now. Looking forward to the show.
Well, here we go. A lot of people wonder, and they ask me quite a bit, how do I get further on this path? What do I do? Why can't I lift a car with my mind? Why can't I, do the dishes with my mind? Why can't I run the vacuum cleaner just because I want it to run? Why don't I get these Siddhic skills, these special exalted skills that the Kundalini brings? And much of the causation outside of what I've said in other shows with it has to do with your level of control. In our society, where we are taught from a very young age that we must control our environment. We must control our inner environment, i.e. our thoughts, our feelings, and we must really try hard to get what you want to have. We must figure out ways and how to use tools and how to use mechanical implements that are on the exterior of our world, of our body, of our understandings. And we have to learn how to use these things in order to get what we want. And with the Kundalini, you're going to need to really begin to let go of these scenarios. You need to let go of the massive amount of control that you may have collected up to this point. And you're letting go of this control in order to become part of what the Kundalini wants you to have. So your control really is clogging the pipeline of the Kundalini coming into you. I think Brooke Robertson has written a piece about giving up control in order to come under control. And so, what she's saying is you're giving up control in order to come under the control of the Kundalini, the greater awareness, the greater control. And from this level of surrender, as you let go of your control of your ego, your ego really wants to control everything around you. And we've talked about this on this show many, many times about how the ego wants to have this and wants to have that, and yet it is not necessarily conducive to you receiving anything from the Kundalini if you're just letting your ego do the talking and the walking. Because, typically you won't get the reception of the sacred skill sets that people would like to have. And so it's very important for people to understand that you give up this control and you give it to the Kundalini. If the Kundalini is giving you a flesh teacher, then you can give some to them too, just in order to allow yourself a level of freedom. And before I start going further into this, I want to give the call-in number. If you want to call in and ask a question, the number is 347-934-0026, and I'll say it slower, 347-934-0026. And feel free to call in. Any of you on the chat room, any of you that are listening on your iPhone or your Google phone or your Android phone or your laptop or your tablet or your desktop computer, feel free to call in. As you pursue giving up the control of the ego, you open up the conduits for many, many things to come to you. working with a student lately, and this student is she's a private student of mine, and she's doing really, really, really well. She's doing really good work, and one of the practices that we use to give up our control is to ask permission for everything. You ask permission. May I turn the hot water on? May I open the silverware drawer? May I go to the bathroom? May I get up? May I think? May I breathe? You're doing all of these permissions. You're not necessarily doing them out loud. You're kind of thinking about them and then, receiving an intuitive answer like, yes, you can turn on the hot water. Yes, you can put your shoes on, that type of thing. And you keep going with this and you keep going with this. And it delivers a set of mindfulness within you that, first of all, keeps you in the present moment all the time. You're not assuming authority over anything. And this is, of course, when you get really good at it, and you don't have those lapses in memory like a person will naturally do at first. You'll have the lapses in memory, and you won't remember to ask permission. But as you do it over and over and over and over, you begin to develop an authority within yourself of giving up control, because you're constantly asking Kundalini or your teacher, and if it's your flesh teacher, your flesh teacher isn't standing over you and going, okay, you must ask me this and that. The flesh teacher is there as a symbol of physically bound Kundalini within a form that your ego and your five sense body can communicate with in an easier way. And so you can ask in your mind, you can ask the physical teacher the same thing that you're asking of the Kundalini. You can say, Yogananda, can I get the silverware out of the drawer? Yogananda, can I go to the bathroom? Or Ramakrishna, can I open the door and let the cat in? Or Ramakrishna, can I take the garbage out? Or Ramakrishna, can I kiss my wife? Things like that. I mean, you could do that, even though, I think that would be just fine. You have to probably want to be a follower of Yogananda or Ramakrishna in order to do that as successfully. Otherwise, you can just ask the Kundalini straight up. Most of you do not have a flesh teacher, and so I will suggest that you ask the Kundalini itself, say, my Kundalini, may I, and then whatever it is that you're asking the Kundalini to do. It's very important for you to do this all the time. Learn to release your control. And by asking the permission of the Kundalini, you're giving control and authority to the Kundalini. Now, if you hear an answer back, like, well, of course, Chrism, you can go to the bathroom. Please have at it. Well, then you know that that's an entity that's contacting you. The Kundalini will not respond to you in words, and don't think that they will, that it will. You are either tied into an entity or a group of entities, and they're trying to pass themselves off as the holy of holies in order to try to control or corrupt you. And so you want to really look out for that. Now, the feelings will come that you'll, yes, Chrism, you can let the cat out. Yes, Chrism, you can mow the lawn. Yes, Chrism, you can fix your dinner. Whatever it is that you're asking for, feel the intuition, feel the intuitive answer first, and feel the freedom that comes with this, because you're going into a direct agreement with your Kundalini. You're going into a direct level of happy association. You're giving your authority, you're giving control of your life over to the Kundalini. It's very, very important that you do this. It's very helpful. And the person that I'm talking about knows this, even though, they still struggle with it. I mean, this person's been doing it for weeks, if not months. And it's still a struggle, because you got to remember that, if you're a single parent or you're even, like you have a dual parent household, there's so many little things that you have to do during the day, communicating with people, calling people, paying the bills, buying the groceries, getting the kids off to school, picking the kids up from school. I mean, there's so many little tiny decisions that we make every day that you're going to miss, which is why you keep doing it day after day after day after day. And you will find yourself catching yourself when you forget to do it. And that's perfectly all right. This is not the kind of an exercise or practice where you're immediately number one with it all the time. You've got to be patient with yourself, and it's also teaching you about self-correction. As we pursue the metamorphosis into homo luminosus, or the divine humanity, we kind of give ourselves into the understandings that we must self-correct towards that goal. We must self-correct our behaviors, our five sense ego-bound behaviors, in order to come in to the level of understanding and surrender that this goal of human divine requires. You've got to do it. Oh, I'm sorry, Joey. It wasn't Joey Winter. It's Joey Frost. My apologies, Joey. I keep thinking you as Mrs. Winter, but okay, Joey Frost. Joey Frost, and many thanks, Joey, for your donation and the care and the concern that you give to the Kundalini Minnesota community. And I know that's an off-topic thing, but it just flashed into my head. All right. So as we give our control to the Kundalini constantly by asking permission. Matter of fact, I just had a meeting with the Minnesota Kundalini community on Monday, and I believe we discussed that. Let me ask Joey here. Yes, may I speak to Mrs. Frost, please?
Hello?
Hi, is this Joey?
It is.
Hey, we discussed this at the meeting, didn't we?
Uh-huh.
How's that been going for you?
Well, as you say, it takes a while to remember. I've got my mouth full of food.
I got a surprise you. You go ahead and chew that up, my dear. Thank you for responding. Yeah. It's like, I just surprised these people are listening on the phone eating lunch. It's like Chrism decides to call them up right in the middle of a mouthful. My apologies, Joey. So yeah, it is a bit challenging, and you will have to self-correct. And so, some really good things are happening here. You're learning about self-correction. You're learning about being aggressive in your mindfulness and in keeping your focus on a specific practice. And it's a very, very strong quality of grace that I think is being given to you as you do these things. And then there are other exercises that bud off from this, or they come out of this, and these are big practices too, like bringing in certain frequencies of energy of the Kundalini. Once you start doing the permissions and you start developing that mindfulness, that awareness, and that present tense understanding of life, where you're constantly being pushed out of the past or pulled back out of the future, and you're there in the present state saying, Kundalini, can I put on my socks? And waiting for that answer in that present moment, waiting for that answer. Well, you really begin to open up doors of power and of experiences that are definitely of a supernatural level and psychic level that correspond with some of the gifts that I mentioned earlier at the start of the show. So, if you have any questions about this, right now, I'd like you to call in or to write it out there on the chat room. Any of you in the chat room, you can write your question there and I'll read it. For those of you that want to call in, the number again is area code 347 in the United States. Area code 347-934-0026. 347-934-0026. And I believe that's the same for Canada as well, as I believe Cole is in Canada. So moving forward from that, we're going into different levels of giving up control. And it's, on the one hand, to the ego, it sounds like, oh, geez, I'm not going to do that. That's absolutely nonsense. And you'll have that conversation with your own ego. You'll be listening to this character named Chrism, and you'll be going, oh, that guy's nuts. How are you going to get anything done if you're constantly asking if you can tie your shoes? Well, believe me, it happens, and it happens quickly. and the response is given quickly, and it's not that much of an interruption. What it is it's forcing you into the present time, and it's forcing you not to have the expectation of permission, of that you're allowed to do this. It's forcing you to listen to the Kundalini, to wait for that permission to be granted through the intuitive awareness. It pushes you into a practice that is the second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month. Okay? But you don't have to do this for too much longer until you get it down. And once you get it down, then that kind of begins to take care of itself. That becomes its own program within your mind where you're constantly asking permission, and you're constantly being left into the purity of the present moment. And from there, you can just let that go on automatic. It's an automatic sequence after that. And then as you have that automatic sequence going, the Kundalini will just take your awareness off of that, and you'll go straight into the power induction or the frequency of energetic induction. And from the frequency of energetic induction, you're really, really, really pulling vast amounts of energy into your system. And this begins to expand the system. And so you'll get tingling in your hands and feet. You'll get, you may get some kriyas, shaking type of kriyas. You may even get a headache. And if you get a headache, then I'm going to ask you to back it off a little bit. This is the conscious, intentional influx of energetic frequencies of a very specific nature that you're pulling into you, that you're bringing up into you, and using whatever vector of entrance into your energetic anatomy that the Kundalini wants to bring. This is very powerful stuff. This stuff will really, really, really rock your world, and in a good way. I've never, ever, ever seen it go harsh or hurtful with a person, unless they ignore the instructions and start doing their own thing, or they initiate some sort of another practice from another teaching or set of teachings into it. Then it can go devastatingly wrong. And so once again, I'll state the admonition of don't mix other techniques into the Kundalini. If you're going to follow this technique, then follow it. Follow it. If you're going to do the safeties, then just do the safeties, the safety protocols, which you can find at www.kundalinisafeties.com. And many thanks to Vincent for putting that out there. All right, so moving onward from that. Now, I wrote a piece about Vincent on the Kundalini Awakening exclamation point group, and I spoke with Vincent today, and he is indeed feeling a constant level of work being done to release himself from possessing entities that have been corrupting his life since he was around 8 years old. And the people ask me, how could this happen? And basically, through an admixture of karma and energetic frequency interaction with the Kundalini activation, not an awakening, but an activation, certain levels of discarnate entities can attach to a person and infiltrate the energetic anatomy. And through that infiltration, it can begin to pull more and more authority over what that body does and what that person is allowed to do as that person tries to express through the physical system. And this is what's happened to Vincent. And so far, so good to a degree with the John of God matrix down there in Abadiânia, Brazil. We'll see. I'm going to give it another 3 days before I initiate another process. But I have to respect what the John of God matrix is doing down there, because it's the same thing that I just said about the Kundalini. If you're going to practice the safeties, then practice these safeties. Don't introduce other things outside of that and expect things to be going well. And so I have to follow that same rule. I have to walk that same talk with the John of God matrix down there in Brazil. And so we'll continue to I would ask you that you continue to join me in prayers for Vincent's complete and total recovery from the possession, for prayers of gratitude to the Kundalini for allowing us to notice this and to understand this. Prayers to the John of God Matrix too, that they may continue to initiate healings for Vincent in the quickest and yet most healthful way that can be given to Vincent at this time. And so, for those of you that don't think the entity thing is a real deal, well, you've got a real education coming your way. Just because you're not having it doesn't mean it's not real. 60%, easily 60%, if not more, of the Kundalini people, the people that awaken to Kundalini or activate the Kundalini, will have an entity experience, whether positive or negative, typically negative, as the entities are allowed to come in order to corrupt a person's situation, in order to force that person to live in a more noble way, or to become more forgiving, or more altruistic, or more tolerant, or more patient, or more strong, or more fearless, or more loving. These types of qualities sometimes have to be enforced upon an individual rather than just having them step into it of their own accord, because they're always going to be fighting the entity and the fear of loss and the want of gain equation that our commercial society has placed us within. Okay. So there's that. If you have any questions about that aspect, please feel free to call in 347-934-0026, or to write it out in the chat room online window or chat box there. And we're going to move forward. Now, with regard to astral travel, Kundalini comes in two different ways with regards to out-of-body experiences or astral travel. Astral travel is one of the precursive elements that can help a person awaken or activate into the Kundalini. It's once you understand some of the techniques involved, it's very easy to do, because you're just paying attention to what your body already does. It already knows how to disconnect from the physical and go into the astral. It already knows the sequence of events that a person needs to go through on a physical way in order to release the spirit and to have the spirit go traveling. You just have to start paying attention to those sequences. And you can artificially stimulate those sequences. I use the Monroe wave system, or the hemispheric synchronization, or short hemisync. And this is developed by Robert Monroe, and that's put out by his company. I'm trying to remember what that is. Well, you'll see it up there on the web if you ever want to do it. Astral travel is safe. You will not be typically be corrupted by another entity trying to grab onto you as you enter the body from traveling, or exit the body to go traveling. You're always connected to the body no matter where you go within the astral. Typically, if you experience fear on the astral, you're going to get slammed back into your body. I've had this. I know this experience is real, because I've had it happen to me, many, many, many different times, using the hemispheric synchronization, but also not using it all. Using the rollout technique, where you roll out of your body, or my body's most enjoyed process with that is to sidestep the separation sequence, where you feel the vibrations of the body from head to toe go faster and faster and faster and faster, until you hear this pop, or this gunshot, or the sound of thunder, and boom, your body lifts up, or your spiritual body lifts up out of your physical body, and you can literally roll over and see yourself sleeping. My body, my system didn't like to do that, and it would I would pass out for a few seconds, the body would detach, and then I'd wake up floating over my body, and then I'd go about my way through the astral. So I've been given that people need to understand that this is safe. This is not sorcery. This is not witchcraft. They're not a bunch of entities hanging out waiting to consume you as you come out of your body. You do this every night anyway. Anyway. Now, there are things that you can do in the physical that can interrupt that type of a thing. And let me give you an example. Back in 2002, before I started teaching, I was at the 2002 World Huna Conference, Huna, Huna Conference, and I was participating in that Huna Conference, and this guy comes up to me out of the audience, and he says, "Hey, you got to check this out." And he shows me this plastic veraphane paper that had all these ancient mystical writings on it, and he says, "What you got to do? What you got to do is you got to take your right hand and you got to circle it to the left over the paper. Just do it 3 times, and you'll feel this total energy shift." And I thought, well, that's kind of curious. Big mistake. Huge mistake. So I went ahead and did it, and I immediately regretted it. I immediately felt an energetic warp occur upon my energetic anatomy, and I knew that I was in deep doo-doo for a period of time. And I watched him pass this thing around the people in the Huna conference, and I looked at the dazed and confused expressions on the people that were doing it. And some of these were the event organizers. It was a very, very strange ordeal. And what this was an energetic trap. This was a level of sorcery. And this guy was probably being compelled to bring it around everybody. And it took me 2 years to get out of that trap, ladies and gentlemen. 2 long years. I was incarcerated in somebody's collection. And there were other creatures that were next to me in this little zoo in the Astral, and they were also incarcerated. And this upset me tremendously. First of all, that I fell for it. Number one, what a right? And second of all, because it was very difficult to figure out a way out of it. I couldn't just snap my fingers and go. And so I did a lot of astral traveling. So I was still allowed to astral travel, even though some part of me was trapped inside that cage. And I traveled around the astral, and I remember coming up to this one scene where hundreds of people were converging on this woman that was on a dais. In the center of the dais, she was giving people healings, all over the place, healings. And I finally got up to her, and she says, "Oh, you poor soul, here, look at these tools." And she gave me a box, and in the box there was just a bunch of. She said, "Take the box." She goes, "Take the box," and I took the box, and a couple of days later, when I was in the astral and I was in that area, I was very angry. And I saw the zookeeper or the collector, and I burst out of my cage, and I grabbed him by the throat, and I flew him up to the highest area of that room, and I jammed a stake into his 4th chakra. I know, it sounds very, very violent, but in the astral, it's a very different scenario than doing that in the physical. And I told him, "See how you like it." And I wished I had let all the other creatures go too, but I can't remember if I did or not. But after that, I was freed from that. I was freed from that incarceration. And I just need you to know that you want to be very, 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 very careful about what you, from your level of curiosity, decide to go into. Out of body is not so much from your curiosity. That's a natural thing that happens every night when you go to sleep. The big difference between what I was doing and what you're doing right now tonight is memory. It's a function of memory. The more you choose to remember what you do in your astral travels at night, the more you'll remember what you're doing. And the more you remember what you're doing, the more you'll remember that you're dreaming inside of the dream, and then that becomes a lucid dream. And then from lucid dreaming, you can go intentionally into an astral projection. After that experience, I was visited by another group of entities, the incubi and the succubi, and they were doing the whole sexual feeding thing. And this was irritating me. As it's like you wake up and you can see that a certain organ, it seems to be not corresponding to your own will or your own thought patterns. And, you got to roll over or take your hands and cut their connection to it. And I let it happen for about 3 times. And I said, don't ever touch me again. Don't. And at about 6 o'clock in the morning, a day after I made that statement, they came to me again, and I shooed them away, but I was angry. And I slammed my head into the pillow and immediately astral projected to where they were on the astral. And I gave them some very good reasons not to do that again. And I wasn't bothered again after that. And so astral projection can be very, very intentional, and you don't have to be, somnambulistic, or you don't have to be super relaxed or in a trance state and just lift out of your body. No, it doesn't need to happen that way at all. And it, often it won't. Sometimes you have to be in a very strong level of intention to be able to hold the astral state with an intention of doing one thing or another. And the people with the Kundalini have these abilities. Even if you're pre-Kundalini and you're working through the astral, you have the level of power to make your own choices and to fix attachments that may be attaching to your energetic envelope or your energetic anatomy. Okay, so I think it's very important for people to understand that you have power. As you're approaching the Kundalini continuum, you have power. You have the power of grace already locked inside your tailbone. And as you go into your astral adventures in the nighttime, that power is still there and available to you. You can start talking to it. You can ask it what it wants you to do in order to come into a more activated state. Or if you're in an activated state, you can ask it what you need to do to come into a more awakened state. You can do this. And I suggest that you do this. You might even ask yourself right before you go to sleep, Shakti Kundalini in me, please let me be aware of you in my dream state and let me remember that meeting with you. Boom. Just say it every night before you go to sleep. Make sure it's a strong intention. Say it 3 times. And then just go to sleep and trust the dream seed that you are planting. Trust that it will germinate. You just have to keep doing it until it does. And you will receive the information from your Shakti that you need to receive. And then another thing, she's pulling something right into my head right now. I'm streaming the Shakti. There are certain forms of what some belief systems will call medicine that may not be particularly good for the Kundalini awakened person. These are admixtures, and they will typically become an admixture to ayahuasca. And datura is one of these admixtures that will not go well for a person. It will give you a great light show, but it can do some serious damage to your energetic anatomy. And I want you, for those of you that are being interested through the ayahuasca experience, make sure that it's only ayahuasca and chacruna that is being used. And if you can't make sure, don't do it. When I was down there in Alonso del Rios in Tere, Peru, well, you can go right down into the kitchen and you can see the ayahuasca boiling. You can see the big bucket or container of chacruna there waiting to go in. And he tells you straight up, it's just ayahuasca, just chacruna, nothing else. Even though he's got a big datura tree right there in his front yard, he doesn't throw it in. And he didn't need to. I mean, gosh, geez Louise. that concoction that he had down there, that ayahuasca and the chacruna was quite powerful enough for me. And then in Oregon, they had a Hawaiian chacruna and ayahuasca, and that was even more of a punch in the face for me. So be careful that you don't have unseen elements come into your experience as you experiment with ayahuasca, and be prepared to vomit a lot. I mean, I didn't vomit hardly at all in Peru, but in Oregon, I was swimming in it. So, I mean, it happens to both. David Beastall is writing, do you have experiences of the angelic beings assisting with entity removals? Angelic beings. Well, you'd have to kind of like tell me what you think an angelic being is, David. But let me look at that equation just for a second here. Yes, there are some levels of assistance that angelics can give. Typically, they won't intercede within Kundalini activated or awakening people. I had to find the resource for my capture and release. Okay, I had to find that. And it taught me a great deal about what I needed to do and how I needed to do it, and what my possibilities were and what my strengths were, and how to find resolution to the situation that I, through my own egoic curiosity, put myself into. I have to take full responsibility for this, ladies and gentlemen. Now, a person like Vincent, no, he would be open to angelic removal, and he just may have that occur, where more and more people are glomming on to his situation, and pretty soon that's going to reach a frequency where an angelic may come in and just step in to that healing and remove these guys. Let me tell you a little bit about these entities. I had a conversation with them about 3 days ago through Vincent. Vincent was being used as a telephone. And they, I was saying, okay, Vincent, this is before I knew they were using him as a phone. I said, okay, Vincent, you're going to need to put something in your mouth to keep them from biting your tongue off. And all of a sudden he says, we'll just push it out and do whatever we want with them. And I said, it's you. And they said, yeah. And I said, you really should be doing this. And they said, what do we care? We're already in hell. And I said, there are darker places in hell where you have yet to go. And you keep doing this, that's where you're going to go. And they just didn't care. They figured that they're already in hell and they can do anything that they want to this person. And it's just not true. It is not true. It is. And this is what other people may hear too. Other people that are having a demonic entity possession. So David Beastall, and David Beastall says, polarized to unconditional love, benevolent. Yep, okay, good. I understand what you're saying. And David has said, he says, I prayed for him, so I hope. So if it's troubling him, yes. If the man has to have his arms tied and his legs tied and a rag stuffed in his mouth, you can bet that it's troubling him. You can bet. And thank you for your kind and considerate prayers of assistance for him. And I would engender all of you who are listening to this to pray for Vincent in his release from this prison of entities. And I was talking to someone just the other day about how this is actually also a Kundalini teaching that is being given to people, as giving them a very, very easy opportunity to give selfless service that your Kundalini loves so much. Selfless service is a huge, huge issue within the Kundalini. How is this person going to use exalted skills for the benefit of others? Or is this person going to use exalted skills for the benefit of themselves only? which one do you think the Kundalini appreciates more? I'll let you answer that for yourself. So thank you, David Beastall, for bringing that up. Yes, the angelics sometimes will intervene. As I said before in other programs, though, within the Kundalini continuum, and angelics understand the education and the transformation through education that the Kundalini brings upon a person. Sometimes we have to learn through trauma. Sometimes the equation of no pain, no gain is true. Certainly within the Kundalini, sometimes that is true. I had to go through 2 years of pain before I could get out of that scenario. Vincent had to go through, almost 2 decades of pain. And he needs help because, I wasn't biting my tongue. I wasn't exploding my eardrums. I wasn't being compelled to do really, really hurtful things. I was being incarcerated, which is bad enough. But to have hellish entities keep you alive just so that they can damage you, no. And if it was brought to my attention, which it was, then I'm part of the continuum now too, and I can help to release. And if an angelic sees that and wants to give assistance, then I am grateful for that assistance. But I know that they, David says, polarized to unconditional love as far as a description for an angelic being, and I'm going to have to say, unconditional love is a lot more than what people think. Unconditional love isn't just about, oh, I love everybody. I love everything because I'm so full of love. Oops. Knocked my glass off. No, it's not that at all. There's so much more to unconditional love. Unconditional love also involves watching a loved one suffer and allowing them to have that suffering so that they can also have the strength that is gained from that suffering. David writes, he says, yeah, it's not all New Age fluff. That's so true, David. Thank you for saying that. David, iMagic Art says, it sounds like you did your own soul retrieval in the Astral. Indeed, I did, iMagic Art. I did. At that time, I had no idea that soul retrieval even existed. And I would have jumped all over that, let me tell you, except, I went to this one shaman. And this is back in Maine, the state of Maine. And she laid me out on a table, and she got her rattles out. And she's saying whatever she was saying, and the entity immediately just ran to my genitals because it knew that she wasn't going to look at my genitals. So yeah, I kind of lost faith in shamans at that point. It wasn't until 2010 later on that I gained a little more confidence in what the shamanistics can do. But yeah, it's just like American shamanism. If you're not willing to accept the human body as it is, whether it's male or female, you got no business doing that kind of work on people. It seems like there's a lot more social reconditioning or unconditioning that a person needs to go through if they're going to be doing that stuff. But getting back to David Beastall's thing with this is very important to understand that unconditional love involves pain. You look at a woman giving birth, and you look at the unconditional love that's happening there, and you look at the amount of pain that is happening there, and you look at the amount of pain that the child may be going through, going from a beautiful, amazing, sacred feminine environment into the cold, cold world of solid elements. That's painful too. To take that first breath of air can be one of the most painful things I think a person can experience. And then, if they're here in the United States, the MD, if it's a boy baby, they're going to bring that knife out and cut on him for no reason. So there's a lot of pain that goes on, and the angelics will watch that and allow that and be good with that. Okay. It's not to say that they do not have mercy. It's just to say that the angelic life form is far more expanded in its understandings of the human condition than the humans that are within that human condition. And they also understand what's going on with the Kundalini. And they know that non-interference is the general rule. Not so with the shall we say negative entities or the hurtful, harmful entities that are already in hell. Not so with them. They just love to intrude into a person's equation. They live for it, if you can call that living. That's what they like to do. But the angelics will stand back. And it's in this kind of a case that we have with Vincent that I will call the angelics and ask them for their assistance. I will go into devotion to Kundalini, to sacred male, sacred female, and ask for a healing for Vincent to be given. And it is being given. Little steps are being taken. And with the option of another huge, big step being taken. Down at John of Gods, they don't let you work on any other kind of they don't let you do any other system. Like you don't get to do tarot. You're not like down there at John of Gods. You don't get, you're not throwing your runes down. You're not doing tarot for people. You're not giving energy healings for people. You do the work that John of God says that you do. You do the work of La Entidade that is working through John of God, and you do that work, and that's the only work you get to do down there. Now, Vincent walked up today, Wednesday, and asked if he could work with his teacher. He claimed me as his teacher. And John of God said yes. That's not a common thing. So I'm kind of happy that occurred, and that just means that with the assistance of the beautiful people like all of you here on the chat room, all of you listening on your devices, all of you calling in, we can all join in and help Vincent out of his situation as he and his mother as he helps himself and his mother helps her child. And I just want to thank you all for listening to that right now. It's very, very, very interesting. It's very, very real. People just don't get it. I mean, you can give this talk show right now to a person that doesn't have Kundalini, and they will just call it a bunch of hooey, a bunch of new age fluff, as David suggests. Even though what he was talking about wasn't that. It's very, very difficult to find people who can understand this from an experiential, radically real standpoint. But I know that many of you can. Those of you that have the Kundalini certainly can. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Her Holiness, the Queen of Celtic questionable comforts, Santara Kundalini.
Hi, Chrism.
Hey, you.
Okay. So there are one or two questions about entities, actually. So
Yeah.
can I ask you those first?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So you've answered one of them, which is, why are the entities attacking him? But the other question was, why would Grace let that happen? Like, why would we need to help if Grace can take it away? You've kind of addressed it. But
I did kind of address it, but I'll nutshell it again. I'll give you the thumbnail sketch. Grace gives the Kundalini person experiencing this the opportunity to find different ways out of the situation on their own, like it did with me. Okay, it is not so much about waving a magic wand or a magic wing over the individual and saying, "Entity, be gone." It's not really about that either. It's about the person learning how to use and and own their own energetic anatomy. It's about a person exploring the different ways of instilling specific levels of discipline that will allow them to 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 solve that issue. Now, these entities attacked Vincent when he was 7 or 8 years old, and there's just not a lot of time for a person to develop those kinds of disciplines and understandings. And so that is where the Kundalini population comes in. That is where sacred service, sacred selfless service comes into the equation. And this is the opportunity that grace is giving us to help this individual. I have had Vincent on this show. You can go back into the archives. You can hear this man. He's a really good guy. And yes, there are karmic resonance with. There is karmic resonance with this too. He had to have the kind of an energetic anatomy that the entities could dig into and take root in. And it's not that, at 7 or 8 years old, you haven't really developed into a really bad person yet. So there is karmic densities being explored here, and I do mean density, because these are very dense karmic experiences for a person. And so it is giving the Kundalini populations that Kundalini knew Vincent would be guided towards and become a part of. Now, in the various groups that this information is being given into, from the Yahoo groups, from the Google Plus group, to the Facebook groups, to the videos, and all of these things, a great number of activated and awakened people are being coalesced into a single unit of possible sacred selfless service. And like David and and Tajasri and Emma and Katie and Manisha, Michelle, Victoria, Cole, Alana Seeker, and Joey and Amelia and Rosemary and Chrism. I mean, we're all being given the opportunity to reach beyond our own concerns about our life and paying rent and eating food and being clean and being kind and considerate. We're being given an opportunity to reach into our soul, the purity of the Kundalini that is flowing through us, and to give consistent prayers for the benefit of another. Give 9 different prayers on 9 different days. So 9 prayers, 1 a day, for 9 days, for the sake of Vincent, if you want to participate. And I'll be posting that on the groups as well. That's just what came. So we are being given opportunities. Vincent is being given opportunities to move forward within this scenario. And it's not about committing negative actions upon these entities. They can be wished well at the same time. They can be helped to move on into a lesser level of hell that they're already in. Maybe be able to even see the light for their way out of that imprisonment through the release of their attack upon him. There are many levels of benevolence and unconditional love that can be given here. And your own levels of energetic amplification will be given through your actions that reflect divine understandings of what unconditional love can do and what it is. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Actually, thank you very much, because thank you very much. I felt anger towards those entities in the sense of I hadn't thought about them moving on in a positive way or to a,
You didn't hear my conversation with them.
But I hadn't even considered that aspect, so I'm grateful for you saying that, actually. Thank you. Okay, so there was a question on the group the other day connected with entities as well, and the question was, can entities work through others to try to impact the path of a Kundalini awakened person?
Well, this is interesting because, it can definitely, if there's a kind of entity that will glom onto a person, and it will glom onto an individual, and they won't really know that they're glommed onto. These are typically unawakened people that are kind of getting into the whole spiritual New Age thing, and they're exploring, and they're out there, and they're doing, third eye awakening, and twin flames, and star seeds, and tarot, and Kundalini yoga, and all manner of exploration into the spiritual potential of the human. And these entities wait for those people because they know that they won't know that they're being possessed. And so they attach themselves to these people, and because the person is not knowing what's going on, the person just goes with it. And maybe the entity will give them a tingle or a rush or some scattered light shows or something to, oh my God, I feel so spiritual now. Oh, I just have to give this to my friend, and they will go to this person, and they will glom onto this individual, and that entity will begin to influence the life of the friend of the person who's possessed. And cords of attachment will be created into the chakra system. And those cords will be used as a way of corrupting the life of the friend, sucking away the desire and the will to live, creating a perfect environment for suicide to occur. And so, they can definitely influence other people that are not being possessed by them. Okay.
Would this be the case also, Chrism, with, say, alcohol and violence and narcissistic abuse?
Yes.
Okay.
And the continuing multiplication of childhood sexual abuse. As the child is abused, the entity is transferred into the child. As the child grows up and becomes sexually aware and has children come around them, that child that is now an adult will begin to sexually molest the children around them, who in turn receive the entity, grow up, become sexually aware, and abuse the children, and so on and so forth, all ad infinitum.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. It's an entity that gets passed from abuser to the abused, and then the abused becomes the abuser to find another innocent person, and they are abused and corrupted, and then and so forth. And it's like a stair-stepping, but it's a stair-step into hell.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chrism. There was another question. I know, heavy stuff, isn't it? There was another question asked, and it deviates a little bit. But first of all, this person said on the thread, Vincent's thread, "Bless you, Chris Mitchell. This will help me a lot on my way." And then some hours later, he asked this question. I've been learning to never force Kundalini's third eye. You should live as one with the universe. Don't eat meat. Ground yourself with nature. Walk in nature barefoot. You should stay positive where you are right now. Accept your faults. Don't overthink your feelings. Listen to your body, as it is your subconscious soul talking to you. I am going on a hike this summer by myself, and let my fear drain over me and accept who I am and who I want to be. Is this a bad idea?
Kind of a.
There's a lot there, yeah. It's not a straight line, but yeah.
The first thing that comes out to me about that is the whole eating meat thing. the people really need to begin to learn about what it is to live in this world. Here, life lives on life. You must understand that life lives on life. The tiger eats the deer. The deer eats the plants. The plants, consume the soil. Life lives on life. It is not about cruel or things of that nature. And so you can still eat meat and be a very peaceful individual. It's just how you intake the flesh of that being that has given you life, their life, its life to you, and how you accept that life gift of itself to you. Now, and there's no problem with that. The Kundalini has no problem with that. The Kundalini comes to us as carnivorous creatures, snakes and tigers and spiders and praying mantises and eagles, and they're all Kundalini creatures, all of them, every single one. And so there's that. But there is also the understanding that not eating meat can really, really raise the vibrations of the individual. You don't always want your vibrations to be raised. You don't want them never to be grounded. Okay. Did you get that from Mr. Hoog? Yeah, I see him here. Yeah, he says that he's been learning never to force third eye. You should live as one with the universe. Don't eat meat. Ground yourself with nature. Walk in nature. This is a guy that is giving himself to angels, archangels, and talking to them. And I'm not talking about the kind that I feel that David Beastall is talking about. These are the people that are looking for a way out of personal responsibility of life. And this level of personal responsibility, if you ask into the universe or into the multiverse, you say, oh, God, I need help with responsibility in my life. And you'll have some entity come along and say, I am the Archangel Michael, and I will give assistance upon thine situation. And all of a sudden you're connected up with an entity that's got a huge ego that is really talking to your ego, and it's just another opportunity for possession. You need to take responsibility for your own life. You do not go out there into the angelic realms and go, oh, I need help. Is there somebody who can help me? But make sure you have wings and a halo. No. This is not the way to go. And so you don't talk with entities. You don't talk with the angelics. You allow the angelics to talk with you if they choose. Typically, they won't. Walking barefoot in the forest is good. Being vegetarian is good, but also being omnivore is good. Being an omnivore, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let the Kundalini decide what your diet is, not your ego or the spiritual aspect of your ego thinking, I'm so holy, I'm this way or that way. Really begin to look at life in a more balanced format. Understand the planet that you live on. Look to nature to teach you what this planet is all about. Trees, some of the oldest living things on this world live on dirt. Does that mean that what we have to do is we have to go out and eat dirt in order to live a very sacred, holy, and long life? I don't think so. I've never had Shakti ask me to go out there and eat dirt. She's had me rub mud all over my face. She's had me do that, and I've done that. And Amelia's done that too. But we don't go out and eat dirt because we see that as we don't want to hurt the plants and we don't want to hurt the animals, and so we'll just eat dirt because we don't want to be a killer. And you have to understand that predation is life on this world. Life consumes life, and we need to honor life in all of its forms and never kill indiscriminately or for fun or for curiosity. Never do that. Never kill for convenience. Practice ahimsa as much as you can. That still allows you to survive. And the one thing about ahimsa, it says, do no harm, do not kill. Well, that includes plants. That includes taking Monsanto Roundup to the weed in your driveway. Maybe just let that weed grow or cultivate the weed. Do whatever, but don't just kill it because you don't think it looks good in your driveway, as they show you on that commercial on TV. So really begin to expand the way you look at life and the way that you understand life to be when you're inside of the Kundalini crucible, inside of this classroom. Over.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Now, David is asking another question here. Let me bring it up here a little bit. And David says, do you have a reliable, tried and tested technique for unblocking the chakras? Yes, I do, David. It's called self-correction. It's called practicing the safety protocols. You practice those safety protocols, David Visto, and you will begin the unblocking of the chakras that are not always blocked up like people say. Now, we do have Granthi knots that can really cause us to have to add a level of work to our equation. But once again, that the Granthi knot for the torso is all about the ego. You get your ego under control, and you've taken care of that Granthi knot there. The chakras know what to do. If you want to really kind of back away from an egotistic figuring or self-identification with needing to heal the chakras or to unblock the chakras. If you're kind, caring, considerate, honest, truthful, tolerant, loving, helpful, giving of service, these alone can unblock any of the chakras, unless you have entities. Okay? And then, I think David asked again, so then Cole comes in and says, this is Cole Kundalini, says, the safeties and attention, how you can integrate them into the qualities of your life related to the chakra that is giving you a blockage. So Cole gave him some good advice, and then Cole also is saying, he's suggesting, how are you honoring the divine in your communication? That's very important. How are you honoring the divine in your communication? People need to look at that. And Victoria Zates says, what happens when the Kundalini is working through the throat knot? A lot of different things happen. The whole throat will balloon up like you're wearing a collar that extends about 6 to 8 inches around the throat and around the neck. You can have great releases of trauma, great releases of, you can vomit. A lot of vomiting can happen when that knot is being worked on. You can have sore throats a lot. You can have coughing a lot. You can have some fairly severe levels of toxic release, energetic toxic release, which will come out as you vomit. You may not vomit a lot of physical material, but you'll vomit a lot of energetic material. And you may be forced to do that vomiting standing up in a bent over position. Just FYI. You really need to look at what Victoria is speaking to you now. You need to look at what Cole mentioned earlier. Is like, what is your communication with the divine like? How are you honoring the divine in your communication? We're looking at the fifth chakra. In the Asian systems, the fifth chakra for them is the seventh chakra for me and for us. For those of us that follow the more of an Indian type of understanding of this. So the fifth chakra is a very important deal. Very important deal. And I will ask you again, Victoria, where where are you honoring your communication with divinity with your fifth chakra? The fifth chakra sits right above the fourth chakra, which is the fullness of love. The fullness of love, and that bleeds into the fourth or to the fifth chakra. That bleeds the beautiful green into the beautiful blue of the fifth chakra. And so use the fourth chakra as a bridge into the fifth, and breathe your love into your throat, and breathe loving thoughts and loving intentions into your throat. Breathe it, and breathe it consciously all the time. And you'll see some fairly large changes in your fifth chakra. And don't be surprised if you develop it'll feel like you have like a growth that is coming out of your neck. And you can clear that with the palm of your hand just by wiping the palm of your hand all over your neck. You just clear that off. They'll come back because it's a whole other level of detox that's coming through. Clear it off, come back, clear it off, come back. And take some baths that have baking soda in them too. Some hot baths for at least 45 minutes, as hot as you can stand it, and then with about a half to a full small box of the baking soda in there with it too. And unless you're medically predisposed not to take baths or hot baths or baths with baking soda, if your doctor says, well, don't do that, well then of course you won't want to do that. Thank you, Victoria. That's a very good question. Thank you. David Beastall comes back and says, astral experiences often dump a lot of fear-based energies back into the physical when re-merging, causing a semi-crisis type of experience. Yes. David, is there anything you want to say to that? Yeah, we have fear happening all around us, the miasma. I understand people don't know what that word means. A miasma is the energetic frequency that a city puts out. So when I lived in Los Angeles, I'd stand on top of the apartment complex I was in. It's like, maybe 500 feet, maybe 300, 500 feet. And I'd look out across the city. I'd be on the roof, and I'd feel the miasma of fear and survival and these really dense levels of frequency coming at me, and it was really kind of amazing to feel that down there. And you can feel it in any big city: London, San Francisco, city of Cork, Santa Rosa, Los Angeles, and that would be Cork in Ireland, just in case people didn't know that. And you could feel this energetic load of very, very heavy, hurtful energy. And that, even as David is saying, that when you're reemerging, you're in a semi-crisis type of fear experience, well, you just need to trust your Kundalini. Don't trust angels. Not that they're not trustworthy, it's just this is not where the focus that the divine would have you be. That the focus is within. The focus is the spirit of the divine within you. The last three vertebrae of your tailbone, and right in the heart. The 8 atoms of divinity that are in the heart. You've got to focus there too. I've had some of the scary reemergencies, from the astral into the physical, and you just got to make the shift, and you got to take the learning for what it is giving to you. It's not always easy, but let me tell you, Kundalini phenomena can be much more amazing. And let's see, we have another question here. Victoria says, thank you, Kristen, and you're welcome, Victoria. And David says, the fear energy is what often blocks my root chakra, causing bipolar. What do you mean? No. Yeah, well, David, you just need to do what Frederick was talking about: walk barefoot in the soil, create that grounding cord from the base of your from the tip of your tailbone to the energies of the earth. Kind of let it go down like a tree. So if you're sitting down on the ground, you allow yourself. Well, the safeties will do it, indeed, David. He's saying just safety. The safeties will do it, but grounding will help you with that as well. Try to be as grounded as possible. And somebody wrote in, call in Cole. I don't know what that means. Is that you, Amelia?
Yeah, Cole says, can I call in?
Of course, Cole. You don't have to.
Of course he can.
I Magic Art is saying, in my experiences, the astral is a good place to face and overcome a lot of fears as well. Indeed. I mean, the fear of death, with the astral experience, my God, that huge fear of death is pretty much wiped out when you start consciously astral projecting. Conscious astral projection pretty much wipes out the fear of death. And going back to David's question, David Beastall, he says, just to safeties, and he gives me a smile. Obviously, you haven't read the safeties, David. Let alone practice them. Practice
They're
them.
They're not quite what they sound.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, okay, put your seatbelt on. Although you might want to. Okay. Oh, good. David said he has. Okay. This must be Cole. I'll go straight over there. And yes,
hey.
Your Holiness, Mr. Cole. How are you?
This is Cole. Hi, Chrism.
Hi, Cole.
I'm just going to turn my computer off here. I'm getting a bit of a...
Yeah.
Hi.
Hang on, Cole. David, I want you to practice them more than once, if you have. Practice them at least every day for 9 days. And if you can do it, do them twice a day. And I don't just mean the Tibetans. I mean all the behavioral modifications as well. The forgiveness, the tolerance, the trust, the honesty, the truth, the love, the selfless service. Do them all. Give them a fair shake and see if they don't make a difference, my friend. Go ahead, Cole.
Well, just because today's conversation was about entities and how they can actually be a lot more serious than
yes.
than what people would expect. Yeah, because I have a bit of personal experience with this, I thought I'd call in and just
yes, you do. Yes,
share.
You do.
And if there are any questions about that too, I'm willing to answer. But
give
yeah,
them your story. Give them your story, Cole.
Okay. Well, I don't really know when it all kind of started for me in terms of the entity stuff. I've kind of just given up on trying to figure that out. But when my process started, I'd been in pain since I was about 13 years old, and then fast forward to, I guess it was about 3 years ago now. One day I'd started doing a lot of meditation for my pain, and one day I got a lot of head pressure, and then I knew that was my activation. But very, very quick after that, just maybe like a month or two after that, I'd come across Chrism's YouTube, and that started to help bring a lot of more information as to what was going on for me. And but yeah, the entity started giving me at first it was all disguised as the Kundalini, so I thought it was the Kundalini, but the entities were giving me these compulsions to move in certain ways, which I thought were Kriyas. And when I did it, it would help relieve some sort of pain that I was feeling. But eventually it started becoming more obvious that it wasn't the Kundalini, because sometimes, like, I would have my arm go up into a ceiling fan, and that's that wasn't something that the Kundalini would do. Of course, I was still learning about that, about the Kundalini, and I still always am. But so I wasn't. It wasn't very clear for me at first. But one thing that I found about entities is that it's interesting because what entities do themselves also kind of reflects what's happening kind of at a global scale right now too. In how they control politicians and stuff like that, and what might actually be happening with there. But for me, what happened was the entities, I didn't really know that they were there. There was no real indication that they were trying to control me. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, boom, and they started taking that control that I had been giving them. And like I just felt like despair, and they were trying to lower my mindfulness so I'd be forgetful, and they were trying to control like my arms a little bit. I definitely didn't have it anywhere near as bad as Vincent does, but it was still a very, very uncomfortable time, and I slowly had to work my way through that, and with Chrism's help and just following the safety as good as I could, that it all started to get a whole lot. I started to become me again, and yeah, I wanted to call in mostly because it's really serious stuff.
Cole, David has a comment for you. I'll read it to you. He says,
Sure.
He says, Cole, your silent soul intention and inner ego thinking can result in a conflict of body actions. So I think he's suggesting that it's not entities, but it's your silent soul intentions and inner ego thinking. What do you think?
Well, the entities are going to attach to the ego too. So, yeah, I think there's truth to that for sure.
Good. Because they do, indeed. That's one of the first places they do attach. But
as to thinking that it's just my mind that was doing those things, I don't think that's necessarily the case. There is an actual tactile, physical consciousness, or I don't know how to describe it, but it's a tactile, spiritual consciousness without a non-corporeal consciousness, and I can feel it. Sometimes it tries to dig into my body or dig into the top of my head, and the one thing that allows it to have any kind of power is when you fear, and it tries to trigger. I don't know if this is exactly the most, just talking about it, if that's the most beneficial to the listeners or not. So if you have any questions to maybe help guide what I'm saying in a more constructive way.
David Beastall said, might feel like being a two-headed ogre. I don't know if that helps.
Well, it feels like, at times, it feels like you got something kind of sitting on the top of your head, squeezing it a little bit.
That can be Kundalini, though, too. That can be a head dance.
It's because I had it. I became aware of Kundalini, and at the same time I already had entities. It's really hard because I didn't have that baseline to differentiate too. So it's just kind of playing it as I go. I'm just trying to learn each day.
Well, that's all good, Cole. That is very good, and I just want to thank you for sharing that with people, because it's very important for people to realize this is a real thing. This doesn't just come from your inner thoughts or your intentions, or it doesn't just come from people having dark psychological self aggressive feelings about whatever that may attract them, but the entities are a real substantial phenomena, and they do have self-awareness. They do have intelligence. They do have consciousness. However aggressive or limited it may be, they are actual self-aware, and they do the work that they are given to do. And that's the work that they're given to do is definitely to challenge us. Definitely.
Yeah, I felt like for myself, especially when it was really bad. It kind of brought me to this precipice where I had to take like incredible responsibility for my thoughts and my actions, because I found that when I allowed myself to go into anything that's not in accordance with the safeties, I felt like I was kind of just being like thrown over that cliff.
Well, you should. I would suggest everybody take the safeties as seriously as you are.
Yeah. So I guess for that, I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had. And even now, I mean, like, I see myself, even just like the last few days where I've had time off school, all the pressure's gone, and like I see that, and the entities aren't so bad right now, and I see myself slipping a little bit, and like even today I was thinking like, you know, that it, you know, there's a like kind of a beauty to the whole like precipice experience that I was put into, but so like I could see there's part of me that agreed to have that happen too, because it's what, you know, what I needed, but yeah, I just really have to take as much responsibility as I can and not slip up. So
Indeed. Thank you, Cole. And thank you for calling in. I'm going to let you.
Thank you, Chrism. I think all the.
What's that? I'm sorry. What was that, Cole?
All the thanks goes to you.
No, all the thanks goes to Kundalini. You know that.
Kundalini. Yeah. Well, I meant Kundalini when I was saying you, but.
Thank you, sir.
What was I gonna say? Sorry.
Okay,
yeah, and recently I've been really into learning about like political corruption and entities and David Icke stuff and all kinds of other sources of information about what's going on in the world. And it, you know, it's and you having you speak earlier about how the world kind of grows that control, that addiction to control, that our ego has. It seems like pretty much all of society is, the way the society is structured is an inversion of what we're trying to become.
Yeah, I agree, Cole. Yeah. Well, actually, no, it's not what we're trying to become. It's what's being foisted upon us.
What's being hoisted upon us?
Yeah, we don't have to be corrupt. We do not have to be a corrupt society.
No, I'm saying that that it's what's pushing us to become the Kundalini.
Okay. So basically evolution through trauma.
Well, I mean, when we're not actively participating, that's what it is.
Right. Even when we are actively participating, that can be what it is too. Goes back to the whole unconditional love thing.
Yeah. But it seems like right now at a large scale, it's about participating.
It's always been this way. It's always been this way on this world.
Oh.
We have societies rise and fall, and they all have very specific levels of corruption to work on. Alexander the Great, their society, Genghis Khan, his society. You know, the different societies, even the Atlantean, Lemurian society, same thing. It's for the evolution of the human soul.
So
don't think that our current timeline is so significantly different than the Romans.
I never even really thought much about the Romans, but
they were one of the cruelest ones.
Okay. So it's
Okay. Okay. Now I'm not gonna. I
Yeah.
don't want to deviate into the geopolitical realm and the corruption that is being experienced through the geopolitical realm. Cole.
Sure.
I'd like to keep it strictly to the Kundalini as best we can during this radio program. But maybe another radio program we can drift into the geopolitical ramifications. David.
Sure.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I do see that there's this, with my situation with the entities that I was experiencing, there is this parallel between what they did with me and what appears to be happening in the political realm, where with me it was taking the control but not acting on it, and then once the trap is set, then it flips it around on you. And I kind of just see that parallel happening within in your own words, the geopolitical condition right now.
Understood, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, like we're participating in our own imprisonment in a way.
We are indeed. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are participating in our own prison by living through the ego and the corresponding ego. And along that line, David says, the shadow ego works through people, fashioning society in a corrupt manner. It's a real battle of light versus dark. Okay, any other questions that we have, Santara?
Well, yes, we've got loads of them that we're obviously not going to get through today. I would like to ask one. What, Chrism?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there was a question on the group. 1 second, I'm going to take a water. There was a question on the group from somebody who was asking about a close friend, and I know they're going to be listening to the archived show, so I'd like to ask it, Chrism. You actually did reply to it. It was about a friend, and she had a younger man or a younger boy who was 20 years older than her. They had great friendship. They had the same interests in themes like aliens and chemtrails and astral travel. They had a very strong spiritual connection. And then, they talked for hours and all of this sort of thing. But then the boy suddenly one day abandoned her and abandoned the friendship. And at that very same time, he became involved with another person who had physics skills and also had alien guidance in the astral. And so what started to happen to her then apparently was that she began to feel drained, and a lot of accidents started to happen to her during driving and all of this. And she also has had Kundalini activation symptoms herself. So after some time, she contacted this friend again, and he was a very, very different person indeed. So she feels as if she is dying, and she suffers a lot of loss for the lack of physicality in that. And there are other things as well that could be mentioned, but that's it in a nutshell, Chrism. Could you speak or give advice for her, please?
I think she's suffering from a level of self-invalidation because of her age, and she's courting somebody that's 20 years younger than her, and I think she fell in love with this person, and they had a very strong spiritual connection, and they shared many synchronicities, and as you said, they talked for hours daily. They were very close to each other. They were probably in a physical relationship as well, and then suddenly this woman is abandoned without saying a word. Suddenly, everything changes, and the abandonment wound sets into her. And she's suffering from that abandonment wound more than anything else. It's not somebody with psitthic skills and an alien guide in the astral, although that isn't a good combination. That is somebody that is being really corrupted. She's not allowed to forget him because of her abandonment wound, and it's the person who gets left. The person who gets left hurts the most out of a relationship, and And no matter how hard she tries, she feels that she's going to be failing everywhere. Her body, her life, her job, her creativity, her experience. She needs to start doing some selfless service, some volunteer work. She needs to stop focusing so much on her issue and start helping somebody else with theirs. She needs to stop yearning for this boy 20 years younger than her. She needs to really begin to get out of this trap that she herself allowed herself to fall into. She needs to take emotional responsibility for it and begin to start again, but in a different and more profoundly educated manner, and to begin her self-validation and to begin to really help others to allow that to occur. Lots of people that are depressed are so depressed, they're so wrapped up into themselves, they don't allow the healing to take place. That's my advice to her. Next question.
Okay, next question, Chrism. I am under medication. I have a disease. This was sent to my inbox. Can my Kundalini heal me better without medication use? I don't know what the disease is or anything.
It depends on whether the Kundalini is the one that sent her the medication.
Ah, okay.
Over.
Why is there a time period between Kundalini activation and Kundalini awakening?
Refinement. The activation sequence is to get people to have direct experience with the Kundalini. The Kundalini will compel them to go forward, faster and faster and faster, opening to the changes that the Kundalini brings and bringing them into a level of refinement that will finally begin to manifest into a union with the divine. And once the union with the divine or the spinal sweep occurs, a whole new level or a whole other mountain on top of the activation mountain materializes, and they begin to climb that mountain. So it takes time for people to receive refinement. It takes time for people to learn their lessons. And so this is why there is that time gap between the activation and the awakening, and that this time gap is different for each people or each person is due to the level of karmic influence that each individual has. Each individual has their own unique karmic equation to bring into the system, and that is also what will determine the amount of time that is occurring as we pass from the activation stage into the awakening stage. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. Next question. I'm going through huge depression as I'm not able to let go of a few people in my life. I'm in intense pain and heartbroken. So the question is, can I share my state of being with my close friend, or should I hide my awakening thing with her, as I really need some emotional support, though my greatest fear is that I lose the ones close by me?
Yeah. You need to take more confidence in your Kundalini than in the physical environment around you. You need to go within and trust the Kundalini first. Rely on the Kundalini first. Rely on the inner divinity within you first. You can reach out to the ones around you, and you can start gentle by giving them specific levels of information that doesn't frighten them. But for the most part, a lot of the levels of information will frighten them. If it doesn't correspond with what they're used to reading or knowing or understanding, then there's a very good chance that you're telling them they frighten them. And so you need to understand that you can communicate to people in ways that use specific words that can convey your experience and what you mean, but without going, I feel like I'm so possessed. Well, that's going to scare the people, and they're not going to want to be around you. And so when you ask if you can share your state of being with your close friend, well, no. Don't share your exact state of being, because I'm not getting the feeling that this friend of yours can metabolize that very well. So choose a different vector of communication, and don't be so needy for emotional support. And don't forget that you know, even though you have your greatest fears that you lose your near one, you never lose the Kundalini. You never lose the Kundalini, and this is what you really should be looking at, not the loss of your friend. If you explain yourself in a way that is safe enough for your friend to metabolize what you're talking about, you're not going to lose them. But also, you're not going to lose this emotional crutch that it sounds like you're having with them, and that you may want to lose. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. The Kundalini stopped moving in my body. There is more fear and illness. What to do?
The safeties. Do the safeties. Do them twice a day, every day. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. I have a question regarding sexual abuse and how to release the triggers caused by it. I would also like to know how I got abused.
They said they'd also like to know how they got abused.
Yeah, no, it's that by whom and how to get these people out of my body.
This person is into severe levels of revenge, so I'm not going to tell them who it was. They need to get through their anger first, and they need to look to forgiveness. They need to look at selfless service for others first, and then let that mitigate their aggression with regards to any kind of a revenge concept they may be nurturing within their heart. The last thing that anybody should do is to expose the target of their abuse so that she can go ahead and do the same thing. The other thing is you want to look at the karmic aspects of Kundalini awakening. Often includes childhood, emotional, physical, sexual abuse. And you want to look at that with regards to the level of awakening that you may be having. And you need to really stop looking for the source of your abuse unless you're willing to look into your own karma. And to even begin to be able to look into your own karma, you need to look past the rage that you have been nurturing. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. And the next question is the last one. I suddenly had the urge to snip the edges of my hair, which has become very coarse. And then I remembered.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So, yeah, are they antennas of energy? The ends of the hair.
Well, unless you color
and
them.
Has she caused damage?
If you color your hair, well, then, of course, you basically chemically snip the hair, the entire length of the hair. But if you're natural with your hair, then and you're just like looking to cut off the split ends, cutting off split ends is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Just don't go up 6 inches. You know, at best, go like 2. And then keep that hair flowing as long as you can. And try not to color it. I know that people sometimes feel they need to color it, and so, but try not to color it, and try to use the most natural shampoos and soaps and conditioners upon them that have not been animal tested. And I want to thank you, Santara, for today's show. Do you have any last words?
No, Chrism. Thank you, and thank everybody for listening, and see you all next week. I said no again, didn't I? And then I spoke.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Atlantis, David, Emma, Katie, Manisha, Michelle, Tajasri, Victoria, Cole, Magikarp. Thank you, Joey and Santara. Thank you, Cole, for calling in. Thank you, everybody, listening in the archives and on the various devices that you have. And I will end it as we started it. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. All done.